My sister has always been the kind of person who smiles before she says something sharp. At family dinners, it used to pass for humor. We were halfway through the meal when she did it again. The table was crowded with bowls and plates, roasted chicken, rice, salad. My mother insisted everyone try even though nobody really liked it. My daughter sat beside me, quiet as always, carefully breaking her bread into small pieces before eating it. She had that focused look she gets when she's trying not to draw attention. My sister watched her for a moment. Then she leaned back in her chair and smirked. Maybe if your daughter had better parents, she said lightly, she wouldn't be so weird. The word lingered over the table. My daughter didn't react outwardly. She didn't cry or protest. She just looked down at her plate, the way she does when she's trying to disappear. I felt something inside me settle in a way that surprised me. For years I had let comments like that slide. My sister had always been competitive about jobs, houses, schools, whose kids were ahead in what subject. Family dinners had become quiet scoreboards. Usually I told myself it wasn't worth the tension. My mother hated conflict. My father preferred pretending he hadn't heard anything. But this time I noticed something small. My daughter's shoulders had pulled inward just slightly, like someone closing a window. I put my fork down, not loudly, just enough to make the movement deliberate. Well, I said, maybe if your kids had better grades, they wouldn't be. The sentence never finished. Her glass slipped out of her hand and shattered against the table edge, water spilling across the tablecloth and into the plates. For a second, nobody moved. My sister stared at me as if I'd broken something far more fragile than the glass. My mother leaned forward immediately. "Please stop," she whispered, the way she always did when conversations got close to the surface. But something about the room had already shifted. I wasn't angry in the way I expected. My voice stayed calm. "No," I said quietly. "I think we should actually talk about this." My sister grabbed a napkin, wiping at the water that had spread toward her phone. "Oh, please," she said. It was a joke. The word joke always appeared when the moment turned uncomfortable. Across from us, my daughter still hadn't looked up. "You call her weird every time we're here," I said. "Or quiet. Or slow. Or shy." It's always framed like rolled her eyes. "I'm just being honest." That's the problem. Mom shifted in her chair. "Let's just finish dinner." I glanced at my daughter then. She was staring at the table, but her hands had stopped moving. She wasn't breaking bread anymore. She was listening. For a long time, I had believed that keeping peace at the table protected her. But maybe silence had just taught her what we were willing to tolerate. "She's not weird," I said. My sister gave a short laugh. "She barely talks. She won't even look people in the eye half the time. That's because every time she does, someone decides to evaluate her." The room fell quiet again. My sister leaned back in her chair, folding her arms. "You're being dramatic." I could feel the familiar pull of the room then. The unspoken pressure that always arrived during these moments. Let it go, smooth it over, make it easier for everyone. For a second, I almost did. Then a voice came from the far end of the table. It was my father. He had been quiet through most family dinners for as long as I could remember. Usually he just focused on his food and waited for things to settle. But now he set his own fork down. "He's not being dramatic," he said. The room shifted toward him. My sister frowned. "Dad, come on." He didn't raise his voice. He just looked at her steadily. "You've been doing this for years." It wasn't loud. It wasn't angry. But it was clear. My sister blinked, like someone adjusting to a sudden change in light. "What are you talking about?" she said. "You treat everything like a competition," he continued. "Jobs, houses, kids. And when someone doesn't fit your idea of winning, you turn them into a punchline." The silence after felt heavier than the broken glass. My mother stared down at her plate. For the first time, my sister didn't have a quick response ready. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Across the table, my daughter slowly lifted her eyes, not toward my sister, toward me. I didn't say anything else. There wasn't much left to say. Dinner never really recovered. People picked at their food, conversations breaking into awkward fragments that never lasted long. Eventually, we gathered our things to leave. Outside, the evening air felt cool and quiet after the tension inside the house. My daughter walked beside me toward the car. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she said softly, "You didn't have to do that." "I did," I said. She thought about that, not smiling exactly. But something in her posture had changed. The tightness in her shoulders had loosened. When we reached the car, she opened the door and paused. "Thanks," she said. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't the kind of moment movies build toward. But as she got into the car, I realized something had shifted, not at the dinner table, inside the space between us, and that was enough.